Good morning and welcome to Elevate and Lead on the Loop Information Station, live and on demand at loopinfo.com. This is Kelly Chandler, and I am joined today by my co-host, Jennifer Bardot. Mike is unable to join us, so it's just a room full of ladies outside of Ryan and Brody. So, of course, they're representing over there. Good morning to all of you out there. It is a gorgeous day in the St. Louis area. It's starting out a little chilly like it does this time of year, but it's supposed to be a high of 73. We were just talking about this before the show started. So get out there, look at the beautiful fall leaves before they're gone, and we're all complaining about the gray skies, right?
I did it on Saturday. I was out at Queenie Park just taking it all in. It's gorgeous as the leaves were changing.
Yes, It's so pretty. I was worried because we just got back from vacation in Florida, and I was afraid for the past week we were going to miss that color because it's taken so long this year. Am I right? Mm-hmm. It's taking forever. And my mom was with us, and she's a photographer, and I'm like, oh, I hope she doesn't miss the pretty fall color. And she didn't. You know, we're in the thick of it now, so definitely get out there and enjoy it, like we said.
Well, we missed you last week.
Oh, thank you.
I held down the fort with my uncle Mike Bly, and we got to interview Corey Schnodhorst with Punchline Media, which was really our Punchline production, but it was a lot of fun. And I don't know if you got to listen to the episode, but he used these really cool quotes about just life. We got really deep. It was powerful.
Yeah. And so that was wonderful. And thank you for doing that. And it was great to also hear Michael. He was a natural, and I have to give him props because Michael, Jennifer's uncle, has listened to every single episode since day one. And that really means a lot to us because we love the feedback and just how he's watched it grown over these past 5 months. We've been on the air for 5 months. So it's gone by fast. And I feel like we've had a ton of wonderful guests and just some interesting conversations.
And
so
he was such a natural. Oh my gosh. It was really cool bouncing back and forth and just hearing his wisdom.
Yeah. You know? He has that wonderful wisdom that he loves to share. And he's very, he has that 10,000 foot view. I feel like he's very good about, sharing what he's been through and applying it in a very, just a very wonderfully motivating way. So
absolutely.
Thank you, Michael, for stepping in. And sorry we didn't get to meet you, Corey. It sounds like you all had a really good time last week.
Yeah, Corey's awesome. He's going to possibly be an author in my 8th edition of my next book. Great.
Wonderful. So
he was one of our speakers at the gala.
Yes. So, tell the listeners about the 8th book. I just saw something on this on LinkedIn.
So this is really about how we set our own mental limits, those mental barriers. And in order to really surpass and get to those next levels, you have to bulldoze those mental blocks, those self-limiting beliefs, and you have to own your grit. So it's all about that mental fortitude, pushing through those hard mental barriers that we self-impose.
Sure. And imposter syndrome, we've talked about that on a prior show. And it's important. We oftentimes put those in our own mind. So I understand and appreciate that concept. So it'll be neat to see how people push through that. And I'm assuming it'll be examples of those types of situations.
It's going to be stories just like that when you've had mental barriers and then you're able to bulldoze those and push to the next levels. Yeah.
So this will be the 8th book. And how many authors do you anticipate having?
I'm shooting for 40 right now. I'm in the recruiting funnel right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to launch the writing coach in January and then hopefully have it launched midsummer. I usually give all the authors about 5 months to articulate their thoughts. So
wow, that's a lot to orchestrate. Yeah, well, good luck. That's a lot to orchestrate. So curious to hear who the authors will eventually be. So exciting. All right. Before we jump in, I wanted to go ahead and thank one of our wonderful sponsors from Edward Jones. Her name is Bethany Schell. When you're choosing a financial advisor, Bethany believes the first question is simple. Does your advisor take the time to really listen? Your goals, your family, your future. It should always be personalized because financial planning isn't just about numbers. Life changes and so does your financial situation. That's why Bethany partners with you every step of the way to help keep your strategy on track. And if you're brand new to investing, that's actually the best time to start. Bethany uses an established process to create a personalized strategy backed by advice, tools, and resources designed to help you reach your goals. You'll always have access to the information you need when you need it. Bethany says true wealth isn't about hitting a magic number. It's about having financial strategies that support a life you love. You can count on her to help you achieve what matters most because the key to being rich is knowing what counts. Contact Bethany today at 314-648-2020. This is a paid-for ad by Bethany Schell, Edward Jones, member SIPC. Thank you, Bethany.
Yeah, thank you, Bethany. I just saw her last week. She attended my grit luncheon for the October event. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Was she a speaker or was she an attendee?
She was attending.
Okay,
she was
gotcha.
going to be a speaker, but I think everybody was still recovering from my gala, so it was a more intimate setting. So we did a little bit more of a mastermind roundtable experience.
Oh, cool.
So yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mike, in his absence, has passed the baton to me for the Ask and Elevate segment. We're going to share a listener question, which we do every week to get feedback from our perspectives and, talk about what it means to us based on our experience. So this one is from Jared in St. Charles. Hello, Elevate and Lead team. I keep hearing that leadership isn't about titles, it's about influence. But in a structured organization, that's easier said than done. How do you lead when you're not the one in charge? Good question. Jennifer, what are your thoughts on that?
I always see everybody as a leader, so I don't really think the title actually matters, and it doesn't matter if you actually are in charge. We are all leaders. So, whoa, hello. I guess I just now have a mic, and it weird popped in my ear. It's weird. Anyway, I think we're just all leaders. I don't really think the title actually matters. So I think, when it comes to leading, I just think if you're being honest and authentic and showing up as yourself and leading with purpose and passion, then we're all leaders. So that's kind of my take.
Gotcha. For me, leaders are interesting because not all leaders are cut from the same cloth. Some leaders are strong in certain areas. Some leaders are, have strengths, whether they're people leaders or maybe one's a strategy and innovation type of leader. So while you can view everyone as a leader, they definitely have strengths and weaknesses that we have to be able to support to move the needle, right? So in my opinion, if you're, under someone that's the leader, because we all have structure, hierarchy within organizations, I think it's important to make sure that you are able to voice your opinions, be able to lead in your way that's going to help support whatever that leader is trying to get across to the entire organization. Because without those people underneath that leader, things are not going to get executed. So I feel like, a lot of times some leaders are more visionary and some leaders are more executionary, if that's a word. Not all leaders are the same. So if you have a leader that's leadership style, that's more of a people person and maybe less on the execution side of things, you're going to have to step up to get the job done that they are, trying to move forward within the organization and make happen. If you have a leader that's more on the side of the strategy and execution, you might have to lead to ensure that the people in the organization feel whole and that they're contributing in part of a larger organization. So I think it just depends on the type of leader, and that you have to align yourself and be happy with the way that you're able to influence the organization to make a difference. Otherwise, if you're not seen or heard, you're not going to last very long there, in my opinion. So anyway, that's kind of my take on that question.
Leading with purpose and passion.
Absolutely. You have to do something that's going to make you feel fulfilled. Otherwise, it's just going to feel very empty for you.
Yeah, light your fire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Light your fire and make sure that you feel like it's something you want to do for the long haul.
Yeah, right.
So, Jared from St. Charles, thank you so much for the question. We appreciate all of our listeners that reach out to us to ask general questions to get our feedback and insight. And we hope that what we share helps you move forward, or at least think of other opinions, if anything. So with that, I am going to pass the mic to Jennifer to help introduce our lovely guests today.
Well, I'm thrilled. This is such an exciting moment. We have the honor to have three remarkable women who have dedicated their lives to education, leadership, and community impact. These are the sisters of Joan. I'm going to butcher these names. Joan Andert. Is that correct? Okay. And then Sister Jean Dust, and then Sister Ann Schultz from the School Sisters of Notre Dame. So with that being said, I would like each of you to kind of take a moment and, introduce the audience who you are.
Well, I'm Sister Joan Andert, and being a native St. Louis, and I have to tell you where I went to high school, and that was Rosati Kane High School. And of course, it's important that you know that I grew up in Dogtown. Both great places to experience grit, I must say.
Absolutely.
And the people that I'm here with today, the sisters, we all entered at the same time. However, our ministry histories take a different turn. I stayed in school. I started off as a classroom teacher, teaching chemistry and math and proceeded to become a principal and then a president. And like I said, I stayed in school. Don't drop out.
And I'm Sister Carol Jean, and I'm an Illinoisan, but entered with Sisters Ann and Joan, entered the Congregation of School Sister Notre Dame, and was a teacher as well in math and science. And actually, Joan and I studied a lot of classes together for that. So in the United States here, I served, and as well, then was called to the country of Honduras, where we have a School Sister Notre Dame Foundation and a school there. Also taught and was administrator of our school in Honduras. And that took me eventually then to another position in general leadership of the congregation on our council located in Rome. And those were 10 wonderful, beautiful years of moving around the world of our congregation, which is in 27 countries. And now I'm back here and loving what I do with the ministries and with vocation ministry here.
So I'm Sister Ann. I was not in class with Joan and Dusty because I'm a history major. They did math and science, not something I did very well. But it was wonderful to go through formation with two women like Joan and Dusty. We've been in the congregation, each of us, more than 50 years. So in 50 years, you've got an opportunity to grow, change, take on different leadership roles. I too started as a classroom teacher in the Midwest, including a stint at Notre Dame High School in South County, which was my best experience as a secondary social studies teacher. I went on to study and then taught at the university. I was a professor of education. From there, the congregation, the leadership in the congregation asked me if I would be willing to represent the congregation of the School Sisters of Notre Dame at the United Nations in New York. So that was a heck of an adventure. 8 wonderful years of that, followed by a move from New York to Washington, D.C., where I continued to do advocacy work, this time on Capitol Hill, representing the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. Currently, I'm in a brand new place helping the congregation ensure that the investments that we make to support our ministries and to support our members are consistent with our values. So I do faith consistent investing and shareholder advocacy for the School Sisters of Notre Dame.
That's amazing. And for those listeners that have never heard of, the School Sisters of Notre Dame, can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and what was the foundation of why you guys are here?
Well, I'd be happy to start, and I'll rely on my colleagues to fill in the blanks. But the School Sisters of Notre Dame are an international congregation of nearly 2,000 women, religious, serving in more than 27 countries throughout Europe, Africa, North and South America, and East Asia. And we're engaged in a wide variety of ministries wherever there's an urgent educational need, including formal education. So we have folks involved in pre-K through university and in non-formal educational ministries like prison work and programs to combat racism and poverty. We tutor immigrants and refugees. We provide spiritual guidance for folks in need of that in a whole variety of settings. So we were founded in 1833 in Bavaria by a woman named Teresa Gerhardinger. Now she's Blessed Teresa of Jesus Gerhardinger. She recognized the need to educate girls if society was to improve. She was particularly interested in engaging and educating girls who were living in rural poverty. So that's where we began. And in many ways, we continue to do that very same thing today. We're educating in a variety of places, in a variety of ways, but always with an eye toward those who are most in need, and always with the hope that their education will lead to transformation of society. So 1833 Bavaria, just 14 years later, sisters left Bavaria and came to the United States, continued the mission in Europe, but brought to the United States the School Sisters of Notre Dame. We came as immigrants and we came to serve immigrant communities. First, the German community, our German foundations, but that mandate very rapidly expanded to include Italian immigrants, Irish immigrants, Polish immigrants, as well as African Americans, Native Americans, and native-born populations throughout the United States. So from the foundations in 1847 in Baltimore, we rapidly expanded westward, and by 1850 had an establishment in Milwaukee and came to St. Louis in 1858. And I'm going to let Joan, the native, take up.
Rosada Kane, Dogtown.
That's right. When we came to St. Louis, we came at the invitation of bishops, and we came at the invitation of pastors to particular places. We did not come in and start our own institutions, but instead we came and we served in the institutions that the diocesan leaders had already identified. Now, that being said, once we agreed to staff a school in a particular parish, it pretty well looked like this. The sisters would arrive, the pastor would say, welcome, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would work from there. So we started in St. Joseph's, which is now in Biddle Street, really in an urban area. And we continued to have missions in places like St. Laborious, which is North City. Now, keep in mind, in 1859, these were not urban corridors. These were very much the fringe of the St. Louis community. And by the time we got to 1866, we had reached out as far as Washington, Missouri, really true to our German and rural roots. In 1895, we finally established a mother house here, Sancta Maria in Ripa, down in South County, on the same grounds as Notre Dame High School. And that mother house was supporting the 15 missions that had already been started. We also, from there, continued to open new missions. In 1903, we went to Southeast Missouri. That's now part of the Springfield Cape Girardeau Diocese. And we opened additional schools at Holy Ghost and St. Francis de Sales, which eventually added a high school. And then we went into two kind of maybe surprise ministries, both educational and yet not the normal parish elementary school. We opened St. Elizabeth Day Nursery in 1915, really with the response that young children needed formation so that they did not start behind. And mothers who had to work to support their families in 1915 benefited from the fact that their children were well cared for and being well educated. In 1952, we opened St. Mary's Special School, and that was a residential program for students with special learning needs, and people came from throughout the country for that. In 1995, the thought was to have students educated in the least restrictive environment, and so to mainstream students. And so we moved from special education in a residential setting to helping to mainstream those same students and families that we served. For those of you who are from St. Louis, you probably just are a little bit nosy. You might have had School Sisters of Notre Dame if you went to school at Our Lady of Loretto, or St. Aloysius, or Rosary High School, or John F. Kennedy High School, or St. Gabriel School, St. Raphael School, St. Dominic Savio, St. Martin de Tours, St. Bernadette, Duchesne High School in St. Louis, St. Andrews, and you can fill in the blank. If you are listening to this podcast, please raise your hand if you were raised by the School Sisters of Notre Dame. And I'm going to turn this over to my friend Carol Jean.
Yes, I just want to add one more, and which is when Sister Joan talked about going to having the mother house, which is like a central headquarters of the congregation in this part of the country, because we have mother houses in other parts of the country too. That was in 1895. And from that moment where there was education happening there, because new young women were entering the congregation and they were educated at that site. So since 1895, there has been education there. And whatever level it was, and it was a holistic education to be a teacher in a school. But for Blessed Teresa, who started the congregation, it was not only reading, writing, and mathematics, it was also how to be good mothers in the family, because mothers would be leaders of their children. It was also to learn skills like sewing and cooking. And so that was all being taught to our sisters, our new young sisters. And even in a high school perspective, such that in 1934, it was Notre Dame High School, which is today 91 years old and building another little section. But Notre Dame High School then was open to lay girls, girls from that weren't going to be sisters, but just the lay girls. And that has continued on until, so it's that kind of variation of how we taught was in this holistic way to help reach the fullness of their potential, whatever anyone's potential is, was that gift. So education in that broad sense is what we have continued to try to show, that whatever we do, however we do it, we are educators in that. And I think that can be any person. So when you talk about leadership and how to be a leader, if you're using your gifts, your package of gifts and your talents, they are unique in all the world. No one else has those. And so you will use those in a way of leading others. And we all know that the best leaders are those who empower others to use their gifts.
That's beautiful. My personal connection of when I found out about your organization was when I attended one of your amazing luncheons. One of my authors in growth, Michelle Stegg, she was an alumni of yours. She was our keynote speaker, and I've been attached ever since. And I am fortunate enough that Deb has asked me to actually be the keynote for 2026. So I'm really excited. Yeah. And the topic is on educators and the difference that all women in all titles make. So very cool. We have so many more questions to ask you, but we are going to take a short break. So you are listening to Elevate and Lead, and we'll be right back.
You've seen this.
Welcome back to Elevate and Lead with Kelly Chandler and Jennifer Bardot. Today, we have had a wonderful conversation so far with the School Sisters of Notre Dame. We are going to continue that conversation in just a moment. We want to thank one of our sponsors, Merrimack Pools and Outdoors. Another summer has passed, but imagine this, your own backyard oasis, a pool where the kids play, a fire pit for cool nights, a patio perfect for hosting friends, the kind of place where memories are made. At Merrimack Pools and Outdoors, they've been bringing those visions to life for over 25 years. Family owned, St. Louis proud, and trusted to design and build the ultimate backyard. And it's not just pools. We're talking full outdoor kitchens, sport courts, fire features, and smart pool technology, LED lighting, spa integration, and more. From concept to completion, Merrimack Pools and Outdoors handles it all. Here's the best part. Free consultations, financing options to fit your budget, and every project backed by a lifetime warranty from the manufacturer. Plus, they're licensed, insured, bonded, and based right here in St. Louis. So if you're ready to stop dreaming and start building, head to splashstl.com. Right now, when you order your package, you'll receive a free salt cell. That's a $2,000 value included. Merrimack Pools and Outdoors, making your backyard the place everyone wants to visit. Visit splashstl.com today. What a perfect day this would be to sit by a pool, even if you're not getting in, just to enjoy the beautiful weather and maybe get those LED lights kicking after the sun goes down. You know what I mean? So thank you very much to Brad Burns and Merrimack Pools and Outdoors. We're going to continue the conversation. I'm going to kick it back over to Jennifer.
So we have so many more questions we want to ask all of you ladies. So when you've guided so many people, what is the most important thing that you've done in regards to helping someone's personal growth?
It's a good question. It's a good question and worth a lot of reflection. I think first it requires that you step back, that I step back and honor the giftedness and the vision of the other. So it's a real privilege to be able to accompany somebody, whether that's on their educational journey or their career journey or their vocational journey. It's an honor. And I think first I have to recognize that. In short, I think it's about accompanying. It's an accompaniment of someone else as he or she grows. It requires the ability to listen deeply, to reflect back what you've heard, to ask salient questions, and to never forget that we can't chart a course for someone else. All we can do is walk with them as they find their own way on their journey.
And it's so tempting sometimes to try to convince somebody
Absolutely.
that their gifts and their journey really are meant to go where I want them or where I need them. As a school leader, I can't tell you how many times I just had to keep from leaping over the desk and telling somebody, no, but you want to have a lifetime career of teaching here, when they were exploring their next step. It's not always easy, but I agree. Stepping back and letting it come to their gifts and their needs is highly important, but not always easy.
Not always easy, for sure.
I was just having this conversation with my cousin, my uncle Mike, about my son. He's applying for different schools for high school. And it was like, well, is this something that he wants, or are we encouraging that? And I love that principle. It's so key, because it's a lot easier to tell somebody what to do rather than like sit back and reflect and make sure that they're going down their unique path. So I love that.
And I think another aspect of it is that we have a phrase that we use a lot. We say it's all about relationships. And so when I would be a teacher, when I'm a teacher in a classroom or any other part of the ministry that I would do, it's building a relationship first. So you become in relationship with someone, you discover who they are, where they are, and what will help them to move to the next step, what will help that person to grow. And when we find ourselves in situations that are very different from our own, and I just reflect that to the times I was in Honduras, the culture to learn, I had to discover a whole lot before just approaching the next steps on things. But it was the relationships. It was building the relationships that helped that to happen. And that person can grow as well as me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's beautiful. And obviously, that is so much of the aspect of what I teach about grit. It's the personal evolution of self and their unique gifts and talents, and then supporting them along that journey. So it's gorgeous. I love it. So, what have been some big changes in regards to what you've seen within your culture, technology, innovation? What does that look like? It keeps you centered with your purpose.
Well, Jennifer, that's an excellent question. And there have been a lot of changes in technology, and that's impacted things. But one of the things that I saw is people at their core are still people. They have different tools. And when I was in high school work, they just had more powerful tools to make their mistakes with. You know, in the olden days, they didn't have the ability to put their mistakes out for the whole world to see. But at the core, kids are still kids. People are still people. People want to be recognized for who they are. They want to be valued and appreciated. And I think even more, it's important to give people your undivided attention at times, because so seldom do they have the live, undivided attention of another human being.
More now than ever, honestly. You know, even with your own children, it's hard sometimes to focus on that person because we're so mired in this activity. I feel like as time goes on, there's so many little boxes to check in the world that we've created for ourselves that it is very hard to focus on one person at one time, put everything away, almost like sit on your hands and like look at this person deeply into their soul kind of a thing, and figure out what moves them and how you can motivate them and move them in the right direction to showcase their own talents that they might not even see. So I agree with you on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think also we often go back to what our roots were, and going back to our roots as School Sisters of Notre Dame and Blessed Teresa in those days, what she did was she saw a vision of something that could get better. And how could she be a part of that? And through her life, also our life is integrated, this prayer community and ministry. So we can only minister because we live in community and pray, or you live in a family and you come together. What you've tried to form a unit there. So going back to that, and that we call is our spirit, our charism, and that can meet any urgent need that comes. So it's being attentive to what the urgent need is. And so when you talk about innovation, you have to first know what is the need, and then what will help that to unfold. And roots can only be roots, but if roots can have branches, they branch out. And innovators are people who branch out because those needs are different for the times. And so that's what we've tried to do for 192 years as School Sisters of Notre Dame, is to keep branching out to what are those needs, but those roots are strong and firm. And to create strong roots will help that to happen.
Yeah, I think that's really deep inside of us as School Sisters of Notre Dame, that we're educators. No matter what particular ministry we're involved in, we're educators. And educators must be, and I think want to be, lifelong learners. And that's a real hallmark, I think, of the congregation. And I hope it's something that everybody we meet, whether in a classroom or in a social service situation or a spiritual counseling situation, a mentorship situation, I hope that's something people pick up and can make their own. Because the only way we can move positively into the future with hope is if we're willing to learn, we're willing to grow, we're willing to change, we're willing to innovate, even when we don't know where that's going.
Yep. Creating hope through the uncertainties. Beautiful. So after, many years of teaching, and obviously you keep emphasizing you guys are teachers and you're leading, what keeps you inspired? What gives you hope? And what can you tell other leaders to stay motivated?
I always found that keeping your eyes on the mission, what are you about, the big picture, trying to stay out of the nitty gritty, and keeping your eyes on the people that you serve. As a as a high school administrator, there were times that I would just go walk the halls or go down and visit the cafeteria. And it was somewhat to be present to the students, but a lot of times it was for my own sake, to see them and to see the promise and the evolution and just the wonderful energy and joy of the people that you're serving. That was very helpful.
I think for me too, there's a Ghanaian symbol. It's called the Sankofa bird, and it's a bird that can reach its neck all the way to the back to bring the egg or bring something forward. And that symbol says a lot to me, because you look back and what is it that drove those pioneering people to move into the next steps of their future? And those are all elements that keep me motivated. They did it. We can do it too. We have our special gifts. We say that often that our founders, but all those many who followed us, and the students we've taught, and the teachers we've worked with, our colleagues in ministries, all of them have their special gifts, but they trusted and they dared. They trusted and they dared. If you trust, you can risk the next piece, but it's that past that can be brought into the future in unique ways, I think. So that keeps me motivated in many different times. What will help raise up this generation, this people, so that they can use their gifts, so that they then become those motivators for the future.
Yeah, there's not much to add to that. That was beautiful. Thank you.
I know. I love the metaphors. Goodness.
I'd only say, I think what really keeps me moving is a vision of what could be, a vision of what can be, a vision of what the world is really destined to become. And I will never see that. I'll never get to the mountain. But knowing that, in fact, because of those people who know and love me, because of the community in which I'm cherished and nurtured, it is possible. It is possible for us to form a new community. It is, another world is possible. And I think if you can envision it, you can lead toward it.
Exactly.
Well put.
Absolutely. That parallels a lot of conversations we've had with leaders in business and putting those big, a lot of them call them hairy audacious goals, BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. Mike uses that all the time. Putting that out there and really trying to build toward that, even though it seems like it's so far out in the future, but you continue to strive and push and use that as your, kind of beacon. And you may never get there, but you're certainly making the steps, taking the steps to get closer to it. So, and your point about going back behind you, that ties beautifully to your roots conversation. That's kind of the roots of your organization, and then branching out and creating new opportunities based on the needs of today. So I love all those analogies. They are wonderful analogies. So.
Absolutely. And I know a big belief system about what you guys are all about is about inclusion. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means and how you show up in the community?
I'll start this time so I don't have to look for something to add. I think, believing that every person not just reflects the goodness of God, but really incarnates God in this time and place. If we really believed that deep in our souls, we would, in fact, include, honor, cherish, call out the gifts of everybody. So I think that's a starting point for us, because we believe that God is still present in this world, because we believe that each human being is an incarnation of that God, a reflection of God's goodness. How can you exclude anybody? How could you ignore somebody? How could you place them outside your circle of love and concern? So that's really what I think drives our inclusion, our sometimes overwhelming desire to include everyone.
Yes, because inclusion leads to greater unity and the oneness of all. The oneness of all. This is one world, one creation of God. It's not separated around. we sometimes have separated it
Yeah.
out, but
We
but-
build the barriers. We build the
Yes.
borders.
yes, but God's vision, that image of, from Neil Armstrong and those first ones who stepped on the moon. And so they took a picture of Earth from outside, and you see no boundaries. You just see water and land and beauty. And I think that's, for me, as an image of how God sees all of it. So to exclude something would be to leave something out that could become a part of my future. It could become a part of my gifts being used. So each person I meet, each experience I have is the preparation for the future, which I don't know, but living it well, including that person or that experience, only makes my next future be better.
For sure.
And I think some of the practical things we do are little, not big programs, but it's an attitude that causes us to do some little things. Recently, I went with my brother to the Native American display at the Missouri Botanical Garden, and to be there and to talk with the presenters and talk about our experience of walking the Trail of Tears in the park in Cape Girardeau, and making a connection one-on-one with a real person. Now, I'm sure that presenter isn't going to go home and say, oh, I met this nun and, we had this great connection. But to build it, what it did for me, I went home and talked about the presenter that I met. And I think that's part of the inclusion, is not just that we give something wonderful to someone who's marginalized, but maybe a group or a person who it represents a marginalized population brings something to us that we need. And I think that's done person to person, and sometimes in very little scales, very small scale. Big scale is great, but small scale works too.
And goes back to the relationship.
Yep.
You entered into relationship with that guide, and that made you a better person. And probably he did too, or she.
I love that. And I want to give Debbie the mic to share a little bit about some of the big event we had mentioned earlier that's coming up, so people can get involved.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. We are super excited to welcome you as our keynote speaker. Our 15th annual Women's Leadership Luncheon will be in St. Louis on Monday, March 2nd at River City Casino. We are looking for sponsors for the event. We offer this event free to our guests, and we're only able to do that because of our sponsors. And our website is ssndcp.org. So if you're interested, reach out to me or to Jennifer, and she will give you more information.
It's a phenomenal event. I'm so honored to be able to be the speaker.
Yeah.
I'm honored to have
Yeah,
you.
I'm super excited.
Can you tell us a little bit more about it, just from someone who hasn't attended? What is the format?
So we try to do it over someone's lunch hour so that people aren't gone from the office too long. So 11 to 11:30 is networking, and then 11:30 to 1 is lunch and the presentation. And there's usually around 650 attendees. Most of the audience is female, although each year we're getting more and more men that attend as guests of sponsors. And we offer this also in Dallas, Texas, in St. Paul, Minnesota, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They all have different speakers. This year, or in 2026, our theme is Women as Educators in All They Are and Do. So each year we have a different theme, and then each campus chooses their speaker, and we have these events. So it's 15 years in St. Louis. In Milwaukee, it's much longer than that. I'm not sure exactly how long, but it's probably almost double that they've been doing it up there. So.
It's a phenomenal event.
And it's
And there's
huge.
vendors. Yeah, it's
I
just
had no
so
idea.
energizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just leave inspired.
Yeah. Oh, you're
Yes.
sweet. And I know some female leaders in education. One, and this is just a quick question. Do you know Katie McKinney with Lafayette Academy? Anyway, there's some others in education that I can think of right off the bat that would be great to talk about your event.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what we're really trying to show is that women are educators in more than just in the classroom.
Sure.
Mhm.
Because when you think of education, that's the first thing you think is formal education. And we're trying to show that they're doing it in so many different ways. So we're actually inviting about 8 other women that are going to stand up and say, this is what they're doing and this is how they see themselves as an educator. So come and see who our surprise guests are.
Yes,
that
it's
day.
going to be very inspiring.
Yeah, I'm
Well, and I
sure.
think it's needed because there's still in our society, there's still a segment that thinks women kind of max out at a level that is so much less than they can achieve. There still are some people out there. Well, why would you have women in higher education? Why would you have women in executive positions in business? And women just need to know that their gifts are important and needed at all levels.
And I know Sister Ann was sharing earlier that we've had a woman who was the past Speaker of the House that was taught by the School Sisters of Notre Dame in Baltimore. And I can't remember who you said.
Yeah. So we've always been about leadership education, no doubt about that. And we're very proud that we've had a U.S. Senator and the former Speaker of the House of Representatives are graduates of one of our high schools in Baltimore, Maryland. But the vast majority of the folks who are educated by us, whether in formal education or non-formal education, are in ship that's often hidden. And I think part of what this can do is identify those hidden ways that women lead. Every woman leads. And if we have helped to contribute to her finding her voice and sharing her gifts and making those available to the world, that's what we're about. It's as simple as that.
You guys are each so inspiring. And as nuns, it's so it's rewarding to see the impact that you're making daily. And you're still so humble and kind and genuine. And you have this long list repertoire of things you've already accomplished. It's amazing to have you guys here in the studio and to be able to feature you guys as incredible female leaders and nuns.
Thank
It
you.
is.
You're
And
very
talk about
kind.
that.
You're
talk
very
about
kind.
the surprising leadership. I mean, when this idea was first presented of having you on the show, I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't think of that in the sense of business and innovation for our show.
Mhm.
But you've really changed my mind just listening to all the leadership that you have exhibited and the differences in leadership style. And it's very inspiring, like Jennifer said. So thank you so much for all of you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer, you want to talk
Yeah.
about the
So,
guest next week?
Thank you all very much. Yeah, next week we actually have Jim Adaltis with Adonis Holdings. He does a recycling for technology. He was actually one of our nonprofit sponsors for our gala. He represented a nonprofit, so I'm going to have to reach out to Jim to see if he can come to our luncheon. so thank you all. You're listening to Elevate and Lead, and we will see you next week.
Is your brand stuck on the sidelines? Tired of feeling like